Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Daily Thread. It is Thursday morning, December 22nd, I believe.
What can I tell you? It's an extraordinary time here in Israel. A lot of historical things happening. You know, it's a relatively small country, and not just because you could cover the whole country with your fingernail on the map, but the place is overflowing with people, and like never saw the place. I've been coming here Hanukkah for a lot of years, You know, most not all 30 years. I have my father's 33rd yahrzeit tomorrow night, but I can't say I was here 33 years, but I was here Hanukkah
Right.
probably 20 some odd years, let's say 22 to
hmm
25. I have never seen it like this. I have never seen it like this, and it's amazing. You see the miracle of Israel. You're walking back from the old city, and you have this tiny narrow little corridor where there's not enough room for the people, and in addition to the people, there's buses squeezing their way through, and and
Right.
somehow the buses get through and the people get through, and you think you see somebody, and you say to yourself, "Oh, that person's definitely getting crushed between the bus and the wall." but then you see him 5 seconds later; he's just walking like it's nobody's business. Everybody just goes about
Yeah.
their business. We came back to the hotel tonight. In the lobby of the hotel, the chief rabbi, the chief Ashkenaz, the chief rabbi of Israel, Rabbi David Lau, was in the lobby of the hotel getting ready to light the Hanukkah menorah in the Waldorf Astoria where we're staying. And with him was the Prime Minister of Argentina, Mauricio Macri.
Ah.
Mauricio Macri. And we took pictures with him too, and I sent it to you as well. The point is that's not the point. The point is that you just go about your business. You're walking back to your hotel,
Yeah.
and you see a powerful member of
Prime
you see
Minister.
a, you
Prime
see
Minister.
a powerful member of the Knesset. You see the chief rabbi of Israel. You see the prime minister of Argentina, and that's just even without trying.
Yeah. Listen, very soon it's going to be you're walking and you're going to see the Kohen Gadol and you're going to see people bringing lambs and different offerings to the Beis Hamikdash, you know? You had mentioned that it is the yard site of your father,
Right,
of Zaidi Gordon,
Nissen
or
Gordon,
to you was
dad,
Tati?
daddy,
Dad?
dad.
So
He
so
was an American. He
I
was an
would like
American.
to, I would,
He was an aristocratic American man. He was born in
what does that mean?
he liked America. You know, he liked America. He liked the American way, and he lived at a very important turning point in the history of the world. You know, it seems that in the 40s, in the 50s, in the 60s, we take a giant step from prehistoric times into modern times. I think the '60s were the borderline between when things were the same probably prior to the '60s for maybe a few hundred years. Then all of a sudden there was like these great technological innovations and things just started to change. And of course it took even a greater giant step when you hit the '90s and social media craze took off. So but
Yeah.
I think prior to social media doing what it has, I think, to my estimation, the 1960s, and that was my father's heyday. He was in the prime of his life in the 1960s.
So interesting because you said that your father loved America, and nowadays people don't love America. People living in America don't love America. Immigrants don't love America.
Now,
America gets a lot of flack.
listen, those people who complain about America, they don't like themselves. America is great. They don't like themselves. They're unhappy with themselves. They're unhappy what they see when they look in the mirror. They're unhappy when they look to see how they're doing in life and what they accomplished or didn't accomplish. There's nothing wrong with the American way. We get the right people in the right position. You see a video I sent you of Governor DeSantis in Florida, who had a Hanukkah menorah lighting ceremony and a Hanukkah party. I think it was probably last night. It looks like it was the fourth candle on the menorah that was being lit. And it was being lit by the kids who lost their father in the Champlain Towers collapse of the building. You know, and
Right.
if you'll show the video, it runs a long time. You don't have to show the whole thing. But he said that Florida endured a lot of hardships. He's finishing his first term, his first 4-year term as governor. He said that Florida has endured a lot of hardships. There were hurricanes. People lost their lives in hurricanes. He says, but in the hurricanes in Florida, you expect hurricanes. You don't expect to go to sleep at night and have the building collapse on top of you that you're sleeping in. So that is
Right.
a big dichotomy in what he has endured and experienced as governor over the last 4 years.
Listen, there's as we this is the last episode of this week, and usually towards the week's end, news stories are quieter. Obviously, there are some things that we'll speak about in this episode, such as Benjamin Netanyahu's buzzer beater and forming his government. But first, I want to give you the opportunity. I want to discuss with you, the yard site that is ahead of us right now.
Okay.
Give you the opportunity to reflect on the life of your father, remembering Nissen Gordon.
What can I tell you? He came here when he was 16 years old in 1934 from a town called Duckshitz. And he always referred to himself as Duckshitz Yingalo. He's a boy from Duckshitz, and he had a remarkable career as a journalist without any formal training, just by his own brain power. And
he wrote in Yiddish, right? He didn't write in English.
Well, listen, if you know anything about European Jewry, Yiddish was the language that everyone spoke. Yiddish was the main tongue, okay? That was the main way that the people in the shtetl, whether it was Poland or Belarus or wherever it was, Ukraine, people spoke in Yiddish. And you know what? And if you go to Borough Park or Williamsburg today, you're still going to hear young kids, their first language is going to be Yiddish. And
some of them, it's their only language.
And their mothers will speaking to them in Yiddish. And, do they understand English? I guess a lot of them will grow up and understand English.
So where did your father learn English?
I don't know. He learned it by being a young man.
Did he speak? I never heard
No,
Zadie. I never heard your father speak. Did he speak a good English?
He didn't speak. He didn't speak with an accent. He spoke like a Yankee. He spoke English, I think, better than Aaron Judge. He didn't speak with an accent, and they didn't have a Yiddish accent or anything like that. He came here early, not post-Holocaust, but early enough because there were signs in their town that things were not going to be good for the Jews. And his father and his father's siblings decided to get out, and they got out when they did. And he went to Yeshiva Torah B'das, and he just had this. He had this talent, I guess. I have a woman who translates his articles for me in Borough Park. She says to me that she can't get over the way he expresses himself in Yiddish in such poetic terms. And some of those Yiddish words they're like gold medal words. A Yiddish word sometimes can have 6 words in it in just one word. But
right.
That's the magic and the expressiveness of Yiddish. Now, it's. Listen, it'll be nice. Listen, I have many of his articles translated that I've run in the 5 Towns Jewish Times, and I've written about him. And one of the great things is that, for me anyway, one of the most rewarding things is that when I'm back home in New York, and this time of year, if I meet people in a store on the street, they say, "Oh, your father's yard site's coming up, right?" So people just know, and it's a tribute to him. And listen, we had a great upbringing. He was a great father. We had a great father and a great mother, and we had this great American upbringing from 2 people.
Great American.
Yeah, we did. We had a great American upbringing. We watched the news, Walter Cronkite. We watched the news on TV at night. No one hid the television in our house.
Didn't happen back then, I guess.
We watched the Ed Sullivan Show together. I remember when the Beatles first appeared on stage in 1964. It was.
You're dating yourself.
It was. I was very young, but it was natural, normal life. No one had to. No one tried to do any zigzagging. Nobody ran these zigzag.
And
Nobody
he
ran these zigzag patterns.
and he passed away at a fairly young age.
Yeah, he was a few days short of the 72nd birthday. And like I said, it was 33 years ago, and it was a surprise to us. It was a shock to us. He really wasn't sick, and it changed our lives. Changed my mother's life. She lived for another 27 years without him, and it changed a lot of things in our lives. But we know that our faith is strong, and we know that he's watching over us, and he's in a powerful position in the highest levels of what we believe in the highest heavens. And we're very connected to him, and we still feel very connected, that he's very connected to us. And one of the things
There's a picture. There's a picture from Crown Heights of at the Levi of Zadie, and this is many years after the Rebbe stopped going out for Levias, but the Rebbe came out for Zadie, for Nissen Gordon's Levia. Why do you think that is?
Well, listen, that was the talk of Chabad in those days. The Rebbe was a few years much older than him. I guess it was in 1980. The Rebbe passed away at the age of, I think, 92 in 1994. So this was 15 years earlier. So he was about.
The Rebbe was born in 1902.
Right. So anyway, he stopped coming out to Levias, but the people that speculate about these things said that he had a great amount of hakaras hatov to Nissen Gordon because of the fact how he represented Chabad in the media, in the Jewish media, which is the way, as I said, I think yesterday, which is the way people communicated. Don't forget that we didn't have social media to clutter up our brains. We had to either sit down and read a book or read a newspaper to know what's going on. I'll tell you the truth. About 10 years ago, a woman from Borough Park called me. She said that she read an article that I wrote about my father, and she said, "I just want you to know, I was the only child growing up in my parents' house, and my parents are gone already. But I want you to know that my mother and father would argue about politics all week long." And the end of the argument usually was my father saying, "We'll wait till the end of the week. We'll see what Nissen Gordon says, and then that'll decide the argument."
That's funny. That's really funny. Do you think that the things that you're involved in now in media, was that sort of infused in you? Were you in awe of what your father was doing, and you said, "I want to get into the same line of work"?
Well, I think it's infused in you, actually. Where do you think you got it from? From
TJ Maxx.
What's the return? What's the return policy there?
I don't think I can return it
7
anymore.
7 days cash back. Listen, of course it made an impression. I was.
Listen, there's two types of people. There's people that see what their father does and they say, "I'm never going to do that," and there are people who end up doing it, whether they like it or not. So you didn't hate, I guess, what your father was doing.
I wanted to do what he did, but I wanted to do it a little differently. I wanted to merge, contemporary journalism, the spoken word, the written word, with concepts that benefit the Jewish community and the state of Israel. So that's what he did, right. But he did that in Yiddish, and in Yiddish he was speaking to, a certain segment of the population. I wanted to expand that, and I started by doing that in electronic media back in 1977, with radio programs. And, it was one of the first times where you had a daily radio program where you could actually, you don't know who's listening, but you can actually discuss contemporary issues from a Torah perspective. And
here we are again. Look what we're doing again.
It's full circle. They say, "Oh, my life's a circle."
Yeah.
Sometimes your life's just a circle from sunrise to sunset.
Let me ask you, what were some things that Zadie was passionate about, things that he stood for? Could be he wrote about it, could be in home behind closed doors. He was very, things that, got him fired up. What would that be?
First of all, it's a very good thing that you never mentioned to me before you do any of these programs what you want to talk about. You know, I don't know. Maybe you just, maybe you just like the spontaneity. I don't know, but
Yeah.
listen, he loved Israel and he loved the Jewish people, and he used his ability and his talent to communicate that. And I think I mentioned it in the past. Simchas Torah, for example, when we get we get the Times delivered to the house every day, and he was very excited to see if there's a story anywhere in the Times that talks about Russian Jews. If Russian Jews came out on Simchas Torah to be at the shul in Moscow, that meant that the flame of Jewish life, the flame of possible potential a Jewish way of life in communist religious vacuum was still burning, was still alive in some way. And I vividly can recall him scouring through the newspaper until he found a couple of lines, just a couple of
Mm.
paragraphs, a small story from the New York Times reporter in Moscow saying that 100 Jews came out to the Moscow synagogue on Simchas Torah night, and they danced with a Sefer Torah, and that defied the authorities in the Soviet Union at the time. But that gave him a tremendous amount of energy and exuberance about hope for the future. And and look what happened. And and he was a man with a vision for the future, as illustrated by the piece in Mishpacha about his visit with Rav Aaron Kotler back in 1961. I'm not going to tell you that he foresaw the future, but he
What would your father think about the world today? What would he say about the world today, the way it is?
well, I don't know about today. Even back then, he was telling me that it's a crazy world. So it's just a different kind of crazy today. I don't think it's less crazy than it was. Maybe there's a.
I think it's more crazy.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, what are you judging by? You don't you don't know what it was like. It was
I
a
don't
different
know.
background. I think we have a different level of pain today than we used to have. Some of the things that are
Well, I think we're more exposed now, nowadays to pain all over the world. Whereas back in the day, if something happened across the globe, you wouldn't really find out about it. Now we find out about things instantly as they happen. Take Meron, for example. If the Meron accident happened in the 50s, you probably wouldn't hear about it for at least a few days, maybe. Or not the 50s, the 40s, the 30s. If it happened back then, you wouldn't hear about it right away. You wouldn't see images or videos of it, and it would be very sad. But I think how exposed we are definitely makes things a little more painful. On the flip side, it can make things more exciting and enjoyable when it's other things. Videos of Ravitcher Meyer Morgenstern and videos of Gedalim. Also, so it's
listen, Nachi,
the pros and the
a
cons.
Holocaust happened in the late 30s and the 40s, and didn't make it into the newspapers. Okay, and
Right.
that was an intentional thing. And the New York Times has a which was the paper of record at the time, as it still claims to be today, although less so. And the President Roosevelt at the time, he had an opportunity. The American Jewish leaders begged him to use the American Air Force to bomb the railways, taking trains into Auschwitz, where people were being killed and incinerated, and he didn't do that either. And he could have done it. He could have bombed the railways and disrupted the Nazi killing machine, but he didn't do it. So
Yeah.
what are we supposed to conclude as a result of that? The book's been written about it. Roosevelt looked the other way while the Germans were having their way with the Jews. The New York Times thought it wasn't an important enough story to report on. That may have been able to put some pressure on some of the Eastern European leaders that were involved in systematic extermination of 6 million Jews. There's a lot to answer for.
Yeah. I hear you. But yeah, listen, the art site is this weekend.
Right.
What's I'm curious, what's the last memory, or rather, I want to ask you, 33 years is a long time. I'm 27. So, having lost someone 33 years ago, a parent, do you remember what that person looks like in real life? Do you
Of course,
remember
of course.
things that they said? Are they alive to you?
Well,
Although it's been such a long
listen,
time.
I think I've written in the paper. I think I put it into words that one of the things that I could say conclusively, having endured the last 33 years, Baruch Hashem, I could tell you that the time moves on, but the distance between a child and a parent doesn't broaden. It doesn't widen. You're as close today as you were close last time you saw them or the last time you spoke to them.
Do you remember the last time you spoke to your father?
Yeah, I do.
What was the conversation about?
Well, listen, it was a very brief conversation. It's hard for me to talk about.
Was it before he had the heart attack, or was it
No,
after?
it was the night that he passed away.
So he was lucid, he was
No, he
conscious.
was conscious. He didn't have that kind of illness. He had a slight heart attack a few weeks earlier. It was so slight that they even thought maybe it's not a heart attack. They thought they thought it might have been indigestion or something. But then they went to the hospital and they took certain blood tests, and that's it.
I'm curious if there was a message of like a going forward message. I don't know. I think that first of all, there's not many people I could ask this question to that I would feel comfortable asking this question to. What was the last conversation you had with somebody? I do want to say that for all those that are listening, I want to implore them to donate to the Eisenberg Family
Yeah,
Fund.
Eisenberg.
They lost their
Yeah.
mother. They lost their mother, Rachel Eisenberg, pretty suddenly after a fight with a brief illness.
Uh-huh.
There's 6 Yesomim aged 16 to 31. They really, really need the help. They really, could use the finances now. As I mentioned yesterday, the father who had suffered a stroke a bunch of years ago, and it debilitated him in a way where it's hard for him to earn a parnasa. So if you can go ahead, hit the link in the description, the show notes of this episode, and please show the Eisenberg family some support.
So my father's yahrzeit is tomorrow night, Friday and Shabbos. He lit Hanukkah candles that year, 1989, and he lit the sixth Hanukkah candle, and then I believe he went to sleep and got up briefly in the morning and then just passed out. My mother told me, and then he wasn't there anymore. But so I knew that he had a heart attack and he was going to have surgery after January 1st. This was December 28th, and the doctors. I'm not blaming doctors, but they said, Mr. Gordon, you're better off having the surgery after New Year's because the staff is very thin during the holiday season.
Right.
So have it. He didn't. So he said have it on January 4th. Anyway, he didn't make it that far. He needed bypass surgery. He had, whatchamacallit, clogged arteries, or however they call it today. I don't know what it is. He wasn't a very, very heavy guy, but he wasn't a
Yeah.
big didn't go to work out, He didn't go to
Right.
work out. He went to work, not to work out. Today a lot of guys are going to work out, But he was an old
Yeah. Instead of work.
old fashioned guy. He just went to work. Anyway, my mother answered the phone the night that he passed away, and he was fine. We were talking about having surgery in a couple of weeks, and
And you did not. Yeah. You didn't go there in person because you did not
no,
think that was going to be
no,
the
I was
end.
there Sunday night. I think I was there Sunday night, and this was Wednesday night, and my mother said, "Do you want to?" She asked him if he wants to speak to me. He said, "No, just tell him that I love him."
Was that out of character? Was that out of the norm?
I don't know.
And that was the last. That was the last thing. That's a really good last thing to hear. At least it wasn't like, you know what, like, do me a favor
Don't call me
and
so.
and
don't call me. Don't call me so often. No, it rings in my ears every day for all these years.
it's really special. Special. It's very nice. I didn't know Zaidi because he passed away obviously before I was born. Um, I have a feeling that maybe that was a little out of character of him to be as expressive like that. So maybe that made it even ever more so meaningful. Were you at all,
No,
thrown off by
no,
that?
I don't think he was afraid to say it. I think he said it often. It's not that wasn't that kind of guy. But the fact that what made it so special was it was the last thing that I heard him say.
And then in the morning when you woke up, that's when you found out.
No, my mother called me. You want those details? My mother called me about 4 o'clock in the morning that she can't wake my father up. I got into my car to drive from Flatbush, where we lived at the time, to Crown Heights. And it was snowing outside, light snow, and I remember stopping at the corner of Ocean Avenue and Church Avenue, and it was 10 to 4 in the morning, I think, and there was a McDonald's there, and people were standing outside McDonald's at 10 to 4 in the morning. I thought that was very weird.
The things you
I thought
remember.
that was very weird. And then I got to the house in Crown Heights, and there was a solid ambulance outside, and an EMS ambulance. And I went inside, and the local doctor was there, who was also a Hatzalah member, and that was it. An hour or two later, they signed a death certificate. And that afternoon, I was on the way to Eretz Yisrael with my brother Binyamin.
And 33 years later, there you are right
Here
now.
we are.
You already
Here we are.
you paid a visit to the caver when you
Mm-hmm.
landed, and I'm sure you're going to visit again before you leave
And,
next
and
week.
and that's why we're here, and that's why we're here, and that was his reason for insisting. Even though his parents are buried in Queens, and his brother and his sister are buried in Queens near the Kever, near the Ohel, near the Lubavitcher Rebbe. But like I said in the very beginning, he loved Israel so much that was important to him. But this was more important to him, to be in Eretz Yisrael.
Amazing. Well, the neshama of Nissen ben Reb Yochanan should have an aliyah. If all of our listeners can make a l'chaim, do a mitzvah, something nice,
Yes,
should be it. Should be
I'll be
a
davening at the Tzemach Tzedek Shul in the old city of Jerusalem on Shabbos morning. They start at 10 o'clock. Well, I spoke to the gabbai there today. He said they start Chabad time, 10 o'clock, but you can come 10:30.
amazing.
And
Well, thank you thank you for the vulnerability, and thank you everyone who listened to this episode. We'll be back at you with more content next week. Of course, make sure to subscribe to the daily thread on WhatsApp. You can message that number. You can hit the link in the description in the show notes of this episode, and it'll take you directly to that number. Or you can email us at thedailythread@meaningfulminute.org. We appreciate you. And
thank you.
any parting words?
Just thank you for what you do. And the fact of the matter is, you're the youngest of 6 kids. My father was
Hmm.
a redhead, and he had freckles on his arms, and you were born on his birthday.
I was. We have the same birthday.
Right.
Yishvat.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah.
There you go. And you thought you were making. You thought you had choice what you want to do.
Right. No. You can run, but you can't
That's right.
hide.
All right. Thank you, Malky.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for
Have a good
listening.
night. Happy Hanukkah.
Good night.